One thing I'm certain of is that we only know a glimpse of how the human body works. That's obvious. Every time, every couple of years, they're discovering huge systems like the glymphatic system. Like, there's always a huge system that's like pivotal to human health that we didn't know about a couple of years ago, or we didn't know about the ramifications, or maybe ancient peoples knew and we forgot. Another example is the how profound the lymphatic system is. We focused for so many years on these other systems, and now there's this system that heals and moves through a fluid intelligence, which is very profound and complex. It moves through emotions. It's almost like the fourth phase of water. There's this shining water that people. I read about this in Thomas Cowan's Human Heart, Cosmic Heart. There's a shining water that these trout just instinctively go in, and this seems to be how certain fluids move through the body. Like, we thought the heart was a pump for a lot of years, and people still say that. It takes like many years for medicine to catch up to research and knowledge. The pump is some sort of valve that transmutes the liquid flow of life. So if you think of the body in certain ways, it has certain ramifications for your health. We are a constellation of stories. How the organs and systems work is part of that story. How the cells work, how the mitochondria work, etc. If you build up disempowering stories, you are like a bastion of disease, for instance. Let's say you're a walking organism and diseases are flying in from the ethers and you just have to keep a mask on, keep yourself covered, live in a bubble, or diseases infiltrate your body. Is that how it works? No. No, it's just not how it works. For one thing, disease doesn't work that way. As the inventor of the PCR test said, you cannot use the PCR test to diagnose. It just enhances particle. You can spot viruses because those things are, he basically says, if you're looking for something, there's sort of this quantum relationship with that thing. You keep expanding it, you're going to find that thing eventually. And he says if you use that as a diagnostic tool, you don't know about virology or electronic microscopy, which I don't know about those necessarily either, except I know that he was a Nobel Prize winning expert. So there's also a book, Holographic Blood. There's a lot of studies on, you put two people in a room with someone with any kind of disease, and there's some predictability on who will get that and who will not. Although some of it's a little bit mysterious. Some of it's like faith, placebo, do you think it's real, etc. So when we're walking around now in this fictitious reality where these viruses are haunting us, Rudolf Steiner said, he was talking in the early 20th century, but he said, in times soon to come, it will be like the Middle Ages, except people won't be afraid of ghosts, they'll be afraid of these things called viruses. And there you go. Here we are. So look at the world being shut down and everyone in different kinds of masks and different kinds of bubbles and different kinds of social isolation. When we know that being social is one of the main boosters of the immune system. Elderly people that are alone for a while and untouched often die. Even a baby that's untouched, this is a well-known phenomenon, can die. Humans need social interaction. So you invent this fictitious thing, and I'm not saying none of that exists, because once you put your focus on something enough, it becomes real. And then also there's whatever you put in your body as a remedy. Like Edgar Cayce asked, someone asked him while he was in his trance, Edgar Cayce, the psychic who answered all kinds of health questions and was right to a staggering degree. Someone asked him, was the hay fever shot the cause of all these troubles? And the source replied, most shots are the cause of most troubles. I like to paraphrase, but it's something just like that. So we invite a system which can't prevent anything or cure most things. We invite a failing system in to say, prevent this thing. Now, if a failing system can't prevent or cure something, like, why do we inject the things from the system or the psychology that doesn't work into our body? Then you start to create things. You start to make what was fictitious real. So we have these billion-dollar campaigns to raise the fiction to the status of reality. And it's not like everyone up there doesn't believe in the fiction, though not a lot of them take their own remedy. Ooh, that's surprising. So this is just a way to reconsider the complexity of how the body works. Someone's hormones, different glands and chakras interface with hormones. Like, we are electromagnetic beings, and there's like these biophoton particles that interact with the electromagnetic frequencies that create all of the function in our cells. It's already a mystery to me. Try to break that down, will you? That would be great. However, for the most part, we've evolved to be very successful in the world. When you derail yourself or take a detour from what has worked for hundreds of thousands of years for humanity and humans thriving, so this requires a different kind of misinformation campaign. Like, human life keeps getting longer and longer, does it? I mean, I read How to Live to Be 100 like 10 years ago, and it's about the people of the Caucasus Mountains. And there were many of them over 100, some over 120, some over 130. And Sula Bennett went there and did all this great work, interviewing them, seeing what they did. How'd you live so long? They were famous throughout all of Russia and other countries for living so long. And this was into the 70s. Some of them didn't get married till they were 50s. They had babies into their 60s and 70s. It's just this interesting and fascinating story. Now, it can sound like unrealistic evidence because it's not in a controlled study. However, really, it's obvious. You go into a culture where people live really long, they have really resilient health. You can ask them, what are you doing? No, let's go take it into a lab where all the factors are taken out that actually matter the most. One of the things they found was the psychological and social factor, as I just mentioned. They had close-knit families. They stayed together for generations. They lived together. They had strong religious beliefs. All this stuff is being ripped away from us as we're inundated with these new fears. Sula Bennett, How to Live to Be 100. So that's a really important book, and there are countless others that kind of, I saw her work referenced in all these works of prior doctors. So herbalists and doctors, they all had to be shut down by, let's say, Rockefellers or Rockefeller stooges, whoever you consider the paradigm shadow figures to be. And in order for medicine to flourish in the United States and Europe, all these herbalist schools had to be shut down. Herbalists are far more effective in most cases. Look at Dr. Sebi. He rediscovered a lot of herbal remedies by going around the world, asking people, experimenting, cured the incurable diseases. Is it surprising that the medical system that's established can't cure the incurable diseases? No, because it wasn't designed. It wasn't designed. It's a system that's designed to kind of maybe ameliorate trauma. You remember the primitive art of bloodletting, like Nostradamus, and take out all the blood, and people would die. And they would say, like, oh, dang, that thing didn't work. This is the Middle Ages, man. We just did stupid we did stupid shit back then. Did they? So we're made to think everything in the past is dumb. I'm pointing that out because in the root cause protocol, you try to rebalance bioavailable copper and iron in your blood so that you can have, those are some of the pivotal factors for like resilient health and strong immunity. One of the things I suggest is giving blood for a few months. And after like 3 or 6 blood donations, you start to feel better. You start to feel like yourself. Because the iron comes out of your tissues and your bones, and then you give the blood. Your body has to remake that quantity of blood, and some of those minerals rebalance. So bloodletting was a real thing that actually worked in some cases for some things. So isn't that profound? So what else did we think was primitive that was actually more effective? Herbs. Like someone I was reading recently, the baby kept falling down and having all kinds of seizures. Do you want to medicate that baby until they're dead with some sort of newfangled, untested medication, which doesn't take into account all this holistic, spiritual, complicated layering that I'm talking about? Or what they found instead was this ancient frankincense oil, ingested anti-inflammatory, one of the strongest anti-inflammatories in nature, brought to baby Christ. Oh, good. Now he won't have seizures or whatever. The medicine that is a household word. Remember, he was brought gold and frankincense and myrrh. There you go. And people internally take gold as well. So the baby stopped having seizures. Long story short, I have a mother-in-law that declined chemo and radiation, which will, for most cancers in most cases, kill you. And if they don't kill you, you having to recover from them and cancer, it's very challenging. So I encourage you to look at alternative protocols. And when I say alternative, I mean not backed by the billion-dollar advertising campaigns of what? Of big pharma. When I say alternative, I mean have been tested for millennia. When I say alternative, I mean people in high integrity that aren't bought out. They didn't sell their soul. So they're the ones that advocate these. There you go. Like Joanna Budwig, I think, nominated for the Nobel Prize 7 times. Her protocol is very simple. It's flax oil and mixed with like cottage cheese. It's actually another kind of cheese that they use, but cottage cheese can work, and it rebalances the electrons starting in your colon, the electromagnetic frequency. We're back to this electromagnetic. She was a doctor. She had the standard education. However, she got very what we are indoctrinated to call woo-woo, because she starts talking about electromagnetic frequencies. Is it any surprise that the electromagnetic frequencies upgrading to 5G? If you look at, there's a book about every time there's an upgrade in the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth. By upgrade, I mean we're inundated with more of it. Then there's a worldwide pandemic. Then there's a purging of that influence. And Steiner said something similar. Rudolf Steiner, founder of anthroposophy and biodynamic farming and a few other things, the School of Architecture, and he was a scholar on Goethe and German and all these other things. Where was I with that? No, Joanna. Oh, he said we have an electromagnetic doppelganger. So everyone has this electric other. So that's something to play with. However, these screens and those things, they engage these other forces, these other things that can influence our health, obviously. So this starts to quickly get complicated. The stakes gather. However, you can find clues. As a caveat, all of my favorite people in history were destroyed by the AMA or the FDA, banned, imprisoned, sometimes killed. A lot of the ones I just mentioned. Dr. Sebi, Royal Rife, Wilhelm Reich, Tesla. Tesla had a healing device. You go stand on this plate and it would kind of vibrate some of your stomach ailments out. I think, who was it? Mark Twain went there to use that. And a lot of people were very surprised by it. Royal Rife found the frequencies to heal seemingly every disease that was known. He had a staggering success rate as well. His technology was all smashed by the AMA and or the FDA. Really? Come on. What we need is a world where, someone has the cure for something. Let's go discuss it with them and see if we can use it. Instead, you have these drones, these, what do you call them? These stooges come dressed in black, willing to sell their soul for money, aren't really connected. For one thing, are massively indoctrinated into this bullshit system. So they don't really know what they're doing. It's like when someone says, get the shot, be responsible. That's an example of what I'm talking about. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what's in it. People that will read labels like religiously, I don't want to take this. They'll inject more shit in their system than they ate in the past 10 years because it bypasses your natural immunity. So why are you not researching the ingredients to a microscopic degree like you do on food label packages? Some people, the thing's not on the package. It's some sort of BPA. It's not required to list if it's below. I'm still not eating it. Good. That's perfect. Putting something in your body is a sacred contract. That's why the word, the Greek word for medicine, pharmacopoeia, is the first word is medicinal and the second word has to do with witchcraft or a spell. I would advise people who don't know anything not to go say, do this thing, do this thing. Now, what do I mean by they don't know anything? They don't know anything about how the thing works or what's in it. And once you know how the thing works or what's in it, you can consider it from in light of the pros and cons. Every pro has a con, every con has a pro. That's just the nature of life. So we're taught to focus on the pro. It's like painkillers. Instead of focusing, why is there pain? Like, what am I eating that's causing this? Where is my psychology? How is my posture? How is my inflammation, my pH levels? They'll just take a painkiller, or they'll take an antacid, eroding your body with acid. Check out the pH Miracle or the Acid Alkaline Balance Diet or any of those books. The Dr. Barefoot's Coral Calcium. Are there alternative cures for these things? Yes. There are hardly any things that I haven't found confident cures for. There are some genetic things like cystic fibrosis, which seem to be a little more difficult and require strict adherence to a raw diet to have like a thriving life. From what I've researched, I'm a carrier for that, so there you go. However, for cancer and like lupus and AIDS and all these things, Dr. Sebi went around he helped Magic Johnson get rid of his AIDS. You remember when Magic Johnson had HIV and he might have had AIDS and then it was gone and no one ever talked about it? Because you can't talk about these things. The powers that be will crush you. So I just want you to realize that though you can't talk about them, they are absolutely real. Same with healing cancer with apricot seeds. You heal cancer with apricot seeds. People have done that. And then they were shut down. I saw one guy, apricotseedsfromgod.com, I think, who was in prison for like 10 years. So what? I need you to fight for your own sovereignty and health, to fight the powers that be, to see your body as sacred, a sacred spiritual covenant between you and this beautiful moment in this world. So thank you so much. I hope that helps.